Okay, let's find record button.
Because we might be in the movies. They may make a video. They are making videos. They're just really coming out. These people have budded, and I try to get their message out to the world. We can be part of that blossom if we so choose. But it just inspired me of what a small band of light can do together. So I can edit that part out. Go, Tony.
Okay, well, welcome from England, from the Ribble Valley. The Sanctuary of Healing is exactly what it says. It's a healing centre, and we offer complementary health therapies, quite some unusual therapies. And we also offer spiritual guidance. Our guidance is based around the Joseph communications. And the Joseph communications are probably the most amazing communications I've ever read in my life. And fortunately, I've been there when they've been, if you like, downloaded to Earth. Michael is a trance medium. That means that Michael can sit, close his eyes, leave his body, and a spirit evolved entity called Joseph takes over his body and speaks. And Michael has no concept what those words are. They just come. And they're absolutely pure and untainted in the books that we produce. There is no editing. We're not allowed to edit. It is exactly as Joseph speaks them. So we sit in circle around Michael, and we have tape recorders. We record what goes on, and then afterwards, Jane transcribes them, and we publish them into books. And fortunately, the books and the information seem to be what a lot of people have been looking for. And actually, one of the books now is being recorded as a bestseller. Your Life After Death has been recorded as a bestseller in the USA on one of the gauges that you have over there. So I am introducing not only my colleague, my advisor, but my very good friend, Michael Reccia. And he's going to talk to you on the lines of co-creation. And at the end of his talk, he would be really happy for people to ask questions. Michael is, and Joseph overlooking Michael, are motivated best when question and answer scenarios are set up. So I'm going to move out to the screen now, and I'm going to let Michael speak for himself. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you,
Tom.
Hi, Noel. Hi, everyone.
Morning.
We've only got the one chair, Noel, so I've just moved into it. Noel, can I begin?
Yes, sir, please.
Can I begin by a little talk on what we do and what Joseph's about, and about co-creation? I'll begin. There are thousands, millions, billions of souls around this planet, and most of them think that the universe that surrounds them, the galaxies out there, our galaxy, our solar system, the planet, everyone else on the planet, all these aspects of creation are aspects they exist within, but are completely separate from. From the vastness of the night sky they are in awe of at one end of the scale, to the precise number of steps separating the remote control, the TV set, and the refrigerator at the other. For most of humanity, it's us and them, and us and the stuff outside of us and not us. And that's why we have the world we have at the moment, a world that we have co-created. How are we capable of doing that? And more to the point, if we are, why have we created such a terrible world? In the beginning, there was divinity. There was God. And God wished to explore, wanted adventure, wished to become more. And so divinity sent forth facets of itself, sparks of light out into his physical universes. And the sparks of light we call angels. Another aspect of creation we believe to be separate from ourselves. And the angels had purpose and joy. And the purpose was to create, and the joy was in doing so. They created universes, galaxies, worlds, spiritual playgrounds, planets that they could visit to experience in matter, in order to grow and become more by passing through the opportunities those worlds they had created presented to them, so that they could take back to divinity the fruits of their adventuring. Then they could create more worlds and have more adventure in the new worlds they had created. And to make those worlds, working together, they used a mixture of positive and negative energies. Their tools, blending them to create and then deconstructing what they had created when it was time to create something new. And this method of co-creation has and does work perfectly in all corners of the universe, in all universes, on all worlds, except in a little backwater on a small blue-green planet called Earth. Oh boy, oh boy. A long, long time ago, a group of angels felt that they had discovered a new way to create, a new way to honor divinity. It was exciting, it was revolutionary. This way would speed up the manner in which planets were formed via angelic intent. What a great idea. An idea they discussed at length with the rest of the angelic host. And a great debate took place for countless ages, with the rest of the angelic host saying the way in which this particular group of, let's call them youngsters, wished to change creation wouldn't work. Oh, yes, it will, said the youngsters. Oh, no, it won't, said the rest of the host. Well, we're going to do it anyway, said the youngsters. We won't advise it, said the host. There will be tears before bedtime. And the youngsters went ahead and they did it anyway. And as a result of that, of speeding up matter, they locked themselves into the illusion of what they were creating. And they forgot. They forgot so much. They forgot they were angels. They forgot they were part of God. They forgot that their thoughts become creation. They took a tumble on the angelic learning curve. No, not a tumble, more like a fall. The fall. An event that led to the world you see around you. An event that we are all still suffering from. Brothers, sisters, friends, when I look at you, when I look at myself, I don't see human beings. I see angels. I see that group of youngsters. When I look at this world, I see an illusion that we have bought into, to the extent that we have forgotten our true origins, forgotten our God heritage. I see a world that has locked itself into a negative, repeating pattern of violence and power seeking. A world that needs to remember. Souls that need to remember what and who they truly are and what they are truly capable of. And why and how do I see all this? Well, because all that I've just said is something I've remembered from deep within myself and from long, long ago. And I've remembered it thanks to the information that a very old, very wise, very concerned discarnate spirit called Joseph has transmitted through me whilst in trance state at periods over the past 11 years through over 100 meetings, 100 sessions, sittings. You are angels, says Joseph. You created this world. Your thoughts become formed. You reinforce the shape of your world through your beliefs. And in the words of a song, you have to get yourselves back to the garden. Things cannot continue as they are. You have to stop the carnival ride and get off it. You have to restore the spiritual status quo. And you do this by co-creating something different, by visualizing the new world you want, the peace you want, the harmony you want, the health you want, the abundance you want, the joy you want. By visualizing all these things from the heart, by going within regularly and in silence, and by finding there an old friend, the means of co-creating this brave new world we all want. An old friend called light. An old friend that you are capable of wielding, directing in the name of spiritual change. Because light is your tool. Because light, transmitted and directed, changes things. Not by coercing people, not by going against the divine universal gift of free will, but by providing a warm cocoon of illumination within which people can be spiritually nurtured. By surrounding them and infusing them with enough light to enable them to take a peek into themselves and to see themselves clearly, perhaps for the first time. Enough light to illuminate the missteps some souls take when dealing with the rest of humanity and with themselves. Enough light for them to see what nurtures, what feeds their angelic core, and what doesn't. Enough light to realize that change is possible, that there is another way, the angelic way, divinity's way. Enough light to change. And light reinforces light. If enough of us join together in our light sending, then a candle flame becomes an arc light. A flashlight becomes a flaming sun. And the world changes for good, forever. Friends, brothers and sisters, you are angels. I, with all my faults, all my strangeness, am an angel. And so is everyone you meet. And so is every one of those people you will never meet during your incarnation, but nevertheless is linked to you. Now, you're here at this conference to discover more about and to examine closely co-creation. If you want to know about co-creation, look outside your windows now. Look to your newspapers this morning and to your news programs throughout the day, and behold the world we have created. You and I and everyone around this globe together have created this imperfect world we see around us, not as a physical act, but as a spiritual one. You and I create together daily. We maintain and reinforce the world as it is, all of us. We just don't realize it. Joseph advises us to create something different before it's too late for this particular cycle, to free ourselves, to free everyone else, and to restore ourselves to what we really are. Co-creators of worlds, galaxies, universes. And the path to that co-creation lies within, here. Not here, here, in the heart mind. Somewhere that, if visited daily, will allow us to restore and replenish the earth, and reach out a hand to all those other souls who stumbled, who fell, and who, without realizing it, are yearning to stand straight and tall and to co-create once more with joy as the angels they once were, and still are. Here are a few words on the subject taken from several of Joseph's communications. Every object, every situation that manifests in a life has been created through mental energy and first activated by the soul that those circumstances are happening to. And it is in God's image that you are made, and that you are a creator. Every minute, every day of your existence, within the greater field of human consciousness, you are a creator. What we hope to do is restore the balance by saying, use God power in a balanced way. See the world as being balanced. Don't believe in the news stories. Don't believe in somebody saying, it's a terrible day today. Don't believe in somebody saying, you are ill. Instead, say, my view of life is that societies get on with each other. My view of life is that I am in perfect health, and so is everyone else. My view of life is that the earth is healed, and the pollution of the earth has stopped. And you are wielding God power, as you always do. But you are wielding it to create the world that you want, the world that we want for you. The effects of the fall would be transmuted today if every person believed in the light within and transmitted that light into the field of human consciousness. It would rectify itself. It is simple. Brothers and sisters, it's not a matter of whether we can co-create. It's a matter of realizing that we're co-creating right now at this minute and of deciding exactly what we want to co-create and of going within and co-creating it today and every day. I'll let Joseph end this section of today's meeting with a final few short words. You are creators. Each of you is part of God and has God powers within you. The power to create. As I've said in the past, a paradise or a hell for yourselves. And this you do at an individual level and at a global level. But you are unaware of the power of your thoughts and your ability to breathe life into them. You share in creation at this very moment. It is not something you have to work towards. You do not become a co-creator with God. You are a co-creator with God.
Thank you, Michael. And hi, I'm Noelle.
Hi, Noelle. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I put an index card on everyone's chair. If you have a question, you can write a question down and bring it over to Bob. But as I have read about all of your books, I do have a question. And so I'll start with me. I would start a co-creation right now. In your books, one of the things that I found most helpful was that you said we have a choice about coming back to this planet. Yes. And that we choose over and over again to come here. So I have a plan now, Michael. I was thinking I'm going to have like a little gravestone thing, and I'm going to put on it, do not come back. So is there a quicker way to get to those? Well, I forget things. So is there a quicker way? I know you speak about this in your book about being able to spiritually evolve, because Joseph, as I understand, he still is in his spiritual evolution and has higher realms or whatever. So I think I gave you enough to speak to that.
Yeah, there are a few points here. The traditional view of reincarnation always disturbed me as a child. I couldn't understand why, if free will is a constant in this universe, and it is, why are we forced to come back? Why do we automatically come back here? And some of the Joseph information provided an answer that to me is totally true and totally makes sense. In that we come back here because we haven't, many of us, investigated anywhere else. From birth to death, we spend time concentrating on this world and hoping that whatever comes next will come next right at the end of our lives and we don't have to think about it. We don't prepare ourselves. And so the prospect of life going on, the prospect of evolving spheres beyond this one, seems frightening to us, and seems like something that is so alien that we really don't want to investigate it. And so when we get to the other side, many of us, we are not prepared. We haven't investigated life after death. We haven't investigated spirituality. And there is a pull back to the earth, because that's what we're used to. There are many pulls back to the earth. We can be pulled back by TV, by beer, by sex, by the relationship. Am I allowed to say that? By the relationship that we feel that we can get right the next time, by the business venture that we feel we can conclude better the next time. And so we are pulled back to the earth. And we also leave something of ourselves here during our lives. We leave aspects of ourselves that are our perceived beliefs. They have power, they have strength, and they pull us back. Come back, I need to sort this out. Come back, I need to experience that again. And so we are put in a position, because we haven't investigated anything else, where we want to come back. And there are wonderful spiritual advisors on that side when we get there. Wonderful beings of light. And they say to us, please don't go back. Look what lies ahead of you. There's light. There are wonderful landscapes. There are wonderful places to visit and to move through. And we say, I go back. I want the holiday. I want the relationship again. And it's our choice. We have free will. And so through free will, we bring ourselves back here. What we should be doing, what Joseph says we should be doing, and what I feel we should be doing, is investigating what comes next. Is making ourselves aware of what comes next. Making ourselves aware that we have a choice. Making ourselves aware that each time we come back here, we are likely to follow the same pattern, make the same mistakes, because they are built into the fabric of the earth. The minute that we reincarnate back here on earth, we begin to draw around ourselves aspects, the dominant aspects of ourselves from past lives, from past history. And it's inevitable. It's a mechanism that is taking place. It's not karma for karmic's sake. It's karma because that's the way that things work here at present. So we might think it's going to be bright and shiny and new, this life that I'm going to have, and I'm going to get everything right. And we will repeat what we've done in the past, because inevitably those dominant vibrations will surround us and cause to manifest around us aspects of our life that happened last time, aspects of our life that we attached such importance to, and we'll repeat the pattern. When, if we want to get away from karma, all we have to do on the other side of life is to say, I'm walking away from this. It is something of the earth. It's not something of my continuing journey into the spiritual spheres and out into eternity and into infinity. So the fast track is to, of course, be aware that you are so much more than this physical body and this physical mind. Is to be aware that there are other worlds waiting for you. And is to be aware of the fall and that great cataclysmic event that trapped us in a view of the world that repeats and repeats and repeats itself. And that we are the masters of our own ship. We can get out of this if we want to. So to be aware of that during our lives. Something else that is vitally important is to be still, is to spend time each day being still for a few minutes and connecting with the mind, not in our heads, not that computer, that calculator in our heads, but in our hearts. And that mind in our hearts brings us, through connection with our greater selves and connection with our guiding influences and connection with the God within, brings us the certainty that there is peace beyond this life, that there is light beyond this life, that there is something wrong in the way that this life is structured at the minute. So silence, being still, meditation, and seeking, and becoming aware that there is more. Seeking out what comes next. And deciding for yourselves through your free will whether your view of what comes next is right for you or wrong for you at each stage. Throwing out anything that offends, keeping anything that feels right, and building up that impression of what happens next, so that when you get there, you're halfway home.
Well, amen on that. Thank you, Michael. We do have quite a few questions, but before we begin with that, I'm going to be really selfish and ask one more, and that has to do with what is Michael, because I know this is a message that has come through very strong in all of the communications with Joseph. Joseph is concerned about our timeline and the purpose of the time that we have left.
Right.
So I'd like you to speak to that, the urgency of the message and our work on this planet.
Yes, it's a question that comes up many times and has come up at many trance demonstrations because people are naturally concerned. How much time have we got left? And are we heading for cataclysm if we're not careful? Well, the answer to the latter part of that is yes, we are. You've only to look at the way that we're consuming the earth, the way that our lives have become so fast, the way that we don't have a minute to consider anything other than material things. As to how much time is left, Joseph will never tell us. In the early stages, he said around 70 years, unless we change. But in later...
Was that 17 or 70?
70. But he has said in subsequent answers that he cannot give us an exact figure because it's a co-creation thing. If we have an exact figure, we then set our minds on that and we co-create that as being set in stone. So he is reluctant to say that there are X number of years left. And of course, it's a moving target because the whole point of the communications is to get enough people sending out light, visualizing light for themselves and for everyone else, and putting light into situations that exist around the globe to change them, so that that time, that potential time of society ending is moved back and back and back. And then if there are enough light is sent out, things do change, and the problem isn't there any longer. It isn't heading for the end. But at present, we are totally locked into materiality. We are totally locked into speed. We are totally locked into power seeking. And that has to change, because if it doesn't, we're going nowhere. We have to recognize God in each other. We have to react to each other via the God inside ourselves. We have to get back to some spiritual state of mind. And we have to put light into the darkness.
Related to that question, someone asked, to create a new earth, do we need a certain number of souls to co-create?
Right. Yes, that's something that comes up quite often too. Joseph has said that one soul working for the light is the equivalent of thousands of people working for the darkness. No light giving is wasted. When you send light to someone or send light to a situation, that light lightens that situation. It might only be by the smallest degree, but it makes a difference. And obviously, the more people we have working for the light, the more people make a difference. But never underestimate your power as an angelic being, as a spiritual being, to make a difference. You see, what do we do when we have a bad news story? A lot of us send out anger, indignance, sometimes hatred, to the source of the whatever problem has occurred around the globe. And that's exactly the opposite of what we should be doing. If we send out anger and hatred, we fuel that darkness. We consolidate it. We make it stronger and more. It has more capability because of us sending out something negative. What we have to do is to send out enough light so that the souls who are causing the darkness, causing the violence, causing the upset across the face of the earth, are given a situation, or given enough light surrounding them, to change from within. People will never change from without. People will never change through the use of machine guns and armies or politics or many religions. They will only change when they rediscover what they are within, the angelic being that they are within. And everyone is an angelic being. It's just that in many, many cases, that angelic core is masked by the perceived needs of the physical and the mental, by the perceived needs, the mistaken need for constant power. And so we have to send out and know that when we send out light, we are joined by numerous souls from the higher spheres of reality, the higher spheres of being, and also by everyone else on this world who is sending out light, unbiased light, light that doesn't dictate, light that doesn't judge, light that simply seeks to illuminate people. And we change hardened hearts, quite literally hardened hearts. We soften them by that light. We give people enough light to examine what they're doing and think, hang on a minute, this is not the right way to act. This is not the right thing to do. I must change. I must sort out a different way of life from within.
Thank you, thank you. We have another question. What is the role of the goddess divine feminine on planet Earth?
Sorry, no, what is the role of the
goddess divine feminine on planet Earth?
Again, this is a question that has come up at trans demonstrations. It depends on your view of what the divine is. You see, I was brought up as a Catholic. I was brought up with a very traditional view of God as a person, somebody who sits there in judgment as to what we do. I don't see God in that view at all. I don't see God as masculine. I don't see God as feminine. I certainly don't see God as an it. I think that is disrespectful. I see God as everything. When I look at your wonderful conference hall and the people in it, I'm looking at God. I'm looking at angels, and I'm looking at God. When you look at me, you're looking at God, and that's not arrogance. There is no lack of God anywhere. And so the role of creation, the role of God creation, is to maintain creation until such time as we, the angelic caretakers of this sphere and the angelic caretakers of any other sphere in the limitless universes and solar systems and galaxies, decide that we want to deconstruct that creation and create something else. I also have learned a lot about divas, about divic activity through Joseph. And I know that there is a backdrop of the landscape and the animal kingdom that is created selflessly by divas so that we have a stage against which we can react. We have a setting for our play. And God activity, God power flows through the divas constantly to maintain the earth and to maintain the animal forms that we have around us and the flora and fauna. Of course, against that creative flow, we have our material flow. We have the effects of millions, billions of minds who wish to use this earth without regarding the earth as being sacred, without regarding the earth as being an equal spirit to us, an equal angelic force. And so you have this, the earth is struggling because we have so much thought put into the acquisition of things, so much thought put into the acquisition of power. And we need to get back to light setting, light bringing. We need to get back to a position of sending out light and acknowledging the earth, acknowledging the flow of God power that flows through the demons, acknowledging the flow of God power that flows through us, and changing the earth back to what it was, the Eden that it once was. We still have time to do that, and I believe that we can do that.
Thank you, Michael. Another question is that there are so many souls. We have over 7 billion souls that have chosen to be on the planet at this time. Is there any significance to that? Is because it is a time of, they see that as a time of transition, for the planet of the new Earth. Could you speak to why there's so many here embodied?
Are you talking about the actual number, Noel? The significance in the number? Noel? Are you talking about a significance in the number of souls that are here at present?
Right, right. But there's so many now, right, that have come to this planet. We come here by choice, and we're at the highest number that we ever know in our history of 7 billion. Is there some significant reason for them to be here? Is it related to any sort of spiritual evolution or the bringing of the new Earth?
Do you know, I believe that there is a reason for the number of souls that are here at the moment. But I don't think it's a positive reason. I think it's the souls that we talked about earlier, the souls that wish to reincarnate, saying, let's go back to the carnival for one last ride. Let's get there whilst we can, whilst there's time to experience again. And I don't think that the souls that are coming are new souls. I think the souls are all part of the fall experiment, if you like, that we, I believe, were a part of. And I believe that they are crowding in now because the signs are there that if we don't change, there won't be an Earth to crowd back into for quite some time that can support human life, that can support the angelic condition within a human framework. And so I don't feel it's to do with a new Earth. I feel it's to do with wanting to come back to the old Earth and experience again.
Well, that's a very different take from what I've heard before. I like that better. Someone asked, please share about sacredness. Thank you. Please share about sacredness.
Sacredness? Gosh. Where do I start on sacredness? We start on sacredness by acknowledging something that we don't often acknowledge. Everything is sacred. Everything is of equal value to divinity. Now, that's something that people find very difficult to take. You know, if you say, look, I've got an ant here, and I've got a tree here, and I've got myself in the middle. Which of them is more important? Which of them is more sacred to God? And the answer is they are all equally important and all equally sacred to God. Every expression that is brought forth by the angelic hosts prior to the pollution of the fall is a sacred expression. And by sacredness, if you mean the praise and the appreciation of God's power, then that is what lies at our core. That is what we exist to do. Not in a worshipful way, not to worship, but to acknowledge the glory that we've come from and the glory that we are capable of putting out. Beyond this earth, beyond this solar system, beyond this area of temporary exclusion, there are wonderful, wonderful scenarios that are put forth by other members of the angelic host. And those worlds are put forth or created so that the angelic host can move through them, often in a physical body, a lighter physical body than we have at this time, in order to experience and bring more experience, more glory to God. Another aspect of sacredness we have to consider is the sacredness that we see when we look at another person. We can't look at another person and say, that person is less than me. That person is less important than me. That person hasn't got it. That person has got it wrong. Because at core, every other person is identical to what we are at core. And it's important in our meetings with people that we meet core to core. We acknowledge the angelic in people before we acknowledge the personality in people. And then our meetings will go more smoothly. Our connections to people will be more spiritual, more sacred. And we will create the society, recreate the society that we once had as the angels that we really are.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruben. Another question here. Beloved Michael, Isn't Joseph a different aspect of yourself?
Gosh, yeah, that's. I've been asked that before. You know, am I in two minds when I'm operating as Joseph? Well, Joseph contacted me, or the connection was made after many years of me working as a medium clairvoyantly. And so I'd worked in spiritualist churches at the time, and I'd worked with thousands of people, quite literally. And I'd also sat remotely with people, and that they would send me photographs from around the world, and I would go up into the attic, and I would sit there with a blank wall and put the photograph against the blank wall, and I'd wait, and a voice would say, "Begin." And then the stream of information would come out, and then I would send off a tape at that time to the person, and we would get testimonials back saying, "How did you know that? How could you possibly know what I'm doing, what's happening in my life?" And my answer was, I can't. But I know a man, I know a woman who does. Now, I see Joseph. Prior to a trance session, I see him, I can describe him. In fact, there was a program in the 70s that you probably haven't seen there. It was a program called The Champions, and it was about three people who crashed in Tibet and were given superpowers. Because it was the 70s, they were very cheap superpowers, and you didn't see many special effects. But they had a boss. They worked for an organization called Nemesis. And there was a boss of Nemesis. There was a head honcho. And he was a little man who had a three-piece suit on and a little pointed beard. And Joseph, if you look up the Champions on Google, look for someone called Tremaine. And Joseph looks just like Tremaine. A little more colour in his beard and a little more colour in his hair, but he looks just like Tremaine. And when I'm in trance, I, at times in the early stages, wanted to influence what I was doing. It's strange to stand to one side of your body. And I found that I couldn't. I found that during the times that Joseph was speaking through me, through my facilities, I couldn't move my body. He did the moving. And then at the end of each trance session, there is a moment of separation. There's a moment when I feel myself coming back. And I can see Joseph detach himself from me. And sometimes he stands close to me for a couple of hours. And sometimes he instantly detaches and moves away, and I'm back to who I am. Now, I've examined this at great length. Am I capable of going into trance and delivering from myself a chapter that has information in it that I'm not aware of consciously, that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, that is perfectly formed, and that I have no recollection of? I don't think so. I like to think I'm reasonably intelligent, but I don't think I'm that intelligent. and also, the books have formed an ongoing narrative. Joseph has purposely introduced us to some information and got us used to certain concepts, and then followed that information with further information. So the books are not sequels to each other in that they contain a warmed over version of the same information. Each book builds on the previous book, and there is a pattern and a plan to what he does. And so, no, I don't think we're the same person.
If I recall correctly, doesn't Joseph share memories of Atlantis? And how old is Joseph?
I don't know the answer to how old he is, and increasingly, I am aware that his term Atlantis may be to do with the Eden that was here before the fall. I think he has more to say on this particular subject, because whenever he describes Atlantis, whenever he's describing what is around him in Atlantis, I get a feeling of somewhere that is not on our vibration. And I don't think for a minute that he is describing one of the spirit spheres that has existed in and moved through. I think he's talking about the state of the earth that was there before the cataclysm that changed things and negatively charged the field of human consciousness. And I think, for convenience, it's termed that Atlantis. Although he has, if you've read Revelation, given us very specific details of what it was like to live there. And I have to say, with a business head on, there was an amazing thing that happened during a trance session, or just after a trance session. Joseph was describing a flying machine that they had that was based on light energy. And I saw a blueprint of it. And just for a fraction of a second, I could understand how it worked. And then that image was completely withdrawn from me. So scribble as I might, I cannot create a blueprint for that machine. But I do know that such things existed, and I do know that they worked in light. Their technology was based on light, not the way that technology is based today at all.
Well, we'll jump from the past to the future. How about future selves? Is there a future self that is already present that we can give our attention to?
Is there, sorry, I didn't catch the word, Noel.
Okay. Is there a future self that is already present that we can give our attention to? So
rather than the term future self, I prefer to say overself or greater self. And I feel that many of you here today will have experienced in meditation those leaps of intuition that seem to connect you with a greater you. And as I live life ever increasingly, as I move through life, I am aware increasingly that only a portion of what I truly am is here, and that there is a greater portion of what I am existing in a spiritual sphere somewhere. I'm also aware that my partner, Jane, is quite literally my other half. And that in this particular incarnation, we have come together in order to do this work. In meditation, you find that your thoughts expand. And you find that with regular meditation, you look on your personality, your earthly personality, as only a portion of what you are. As though sometimes you must have had the feeling that you are watching the passing parade. And circumstances, situations that seem so difficult for you, suddenly become something that you observe rather than participate in. And you can do that with your thoughts. You can quieten your thoughts and realize in meditation that many of those thoughts are thoughts that are passing through the ether of the field and are not really related to you at all. And yet you designate them, you decide, you label them as being part of your own. So yes, I feel that there is a greater self. I know that there is a greater self. And I know from glimpses of past lives that our lives are suits of clothes that allow us to experience certain challenges in order for us to evolve spiritually. And that we can dip into that wardrobe of the past suits of clothes, but we are not that wardrobe. We are a greater being than that. We are the angelic being that we spoke about at the beginning of today's meeting. That's our reality.
very good. Thank you, Michael. Next question is, there are so many groups who speak of being a family of light, who realize there are simply pockets of light here to serve the light in everything else. So why do we remain so splintered?
Do you know, Noel, I'm sorry, I'm having some difficulty with what you're saying. I only got half of that. I do apologize.
No problem. There are so many groups who speak of being family of light.
Right.
Who realize there are simply pockets of light here to serve the light in everything else.
Yes.
So why do we remain so splintered?
Right, right. We are all one family. I'm related to each of you in your room, and you are related to me. We are brothers and sisters in the light. But for everyone that realizes this, every soul that realizes this, you have 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 souls that don't realize, that are lost in the negativity of their own mindset. So we have to keep on keeping on in the knowledge that we are spiritual family, and in the knowledge that whenever we sit for the light, and whenever we are filled with the light, that light is never, ever wasted. And that when we sit for the light, we are never, ever alone. We are never alone across the globe because we link up with like-minded souls who are incarnated at present. And we are never alone spiritually because gathered to us and helping us are guides and guiding influences and spiritual family from the spiritual spheres. And so we must never feel that we are in isolation, and we must never feel that we are not accomplishing anything by giving out that light that, as you say, we feel we are filled by. And let's look, worst case scenario, and this is not for a moment something that I intend to be true. Worst case scenario, what if society did come to an end? Would all our light sharing and light bringing and light sending have been a waste of time? Not at all. Not at all. Because each soul that we convince of an afterlife, each soul that we convince not to come back, moves on into eternity through the spiritual cleansing spheres and out into infinity. We have changed that soul by our light bearing, by our light sending forever. They will never be the same. They too are filled with light because they have taken on board the light that we have sent to them. So even if everything ended today, your light sending until this point would not have been in vain. Would not have been in vain, and would have changed souls and changed hearts.
Thank you, thank you. Very, very helpful. I'm going to step a little closer to the computer here. I would like you to briefly talk about the field, because as I understand it, from Joseph's description, we used to come here as spirits just to hang out and leave. We didn't even differentiate into sexes. It was like a playground that we could visit. And then the field at that time was serving us. Then, as my understanding, the fall happened, and the field has been building, so the field no longer serves us. We're serving the field. And we use the term the field here quite a bit. So I'd like you to clarify what Joseph's term of the field is.
Yes, yes, thank you. When Joseph talks of the field, he's referring to the field of human consciousness. You see, because of the fall, we can't construct or deconstruct completely as we would and as we do as the angelic beings that we really are. We leave traces of what we have done. We leave layers of consciousness. And not only that, but we are linked because we are essentially the same thing. We are all part and equal part of God. We are linked to each other. And so we send out messages to each other. Our creative thoughts cannot escape this area of consciousness, and they build up. And what thoughts do we have on a daily basis? What thoughts do many people have on a daily basis? I'm ill. I'm poor. I'm angry. I deserve better than this. Things aren't going well. It's been a terrible day. And all those thoughts we are pouring out into the atmosphere. And those thoughts, our thoughts are alive. There is nothing in this universe that isn't alive apart from our approach to God. Everything is alive. The chair that I'm sitting on is alive. The carpet that I'm resting my feet on is alive. The walls are alive because they are all made out of spiritual molecules. They all proceed from God power and angelic power. So everything is alive. But here, those live thoughts cannot escape, and they are negative. And we pour more and more negativity into our collective consciousness, if you like. And that collective consciousness is alive. And that collective consciousness likes the way that things are. because that collective consciousness needs the negativity that we put out daily, every night, every day, in order to maintain itself at its present setting. Now, there is another setting for it. There is a positive setting for it. There is a spiritual setting for it. But the field, as an awareness, has forgotten that. And so it is in the interests of the field to keep us set at negative. And it keeps us set at negative through our society. Our society that says, you're ill, you're growing old, you don't have enough, you need more things. And so there's a cycle going on of us wanting and feeling that things are negatively set, which fuels the field and continues the field in its present settings.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. We have another question. If we are all angelic beings of one light family, are we co-creating more unhealthy separation by identifying with, quote, galactic family from different planets? Do you want me to repeat that?
Well, that's fine. I've got that. Thank you. Thank you, Noel. Yeah. You know, as we've said in the previous question, as an answer to the previous question, everything is alive. And so for me, it's not a question of, is there life on other planets? It's a question of what does that life look like? Because it's everywhere. It's everywhere. But we have isolated ourselves from that life by our negativity at present. And it's as though there's a great sign that's been popped on the earth and it says, keep off, quarantine, until we get our life together, until we get our thoughts together, until we think ourselves through the heart out of the effects of the fall. So I have no problem with life on other planets. I think there is life on many, many other planets. In fact, in Revelation, I was quite shocked a few chapters in to be presented via Joseph with the image of a person, a man, who lives on another world. And that other world, which was a huge world, because I was shown the world as well, about 3 times the size of the Earth, is quite close to the Earth. But it is of a different vibrational quality so that we cannot sense it and we can't see it's there. We are hemmed in by our own thoughts. Are we affecting our ability to connect with other planets and with other societies on other planets? Yes, we are at the moment. We have to sort ourselves out. And then once we've sorted ourselves out, we will not only connect with life on other planets, we will reconnect with our angelic capabilities and allow us to create other planets and other worlds in the first place.
Well, I'm into planet co-creation, big time. I think everyone here is. I think there's a few here from, you know, other planets. So, thank you, Michael. We have 2 more questions. Do you have time?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. I think you pretty much shared this, but I'm going to go ahead and have you speak to it anyway. What can you share about if we prefer not to be pulled into violence on TV, yet our friends are? What is ours to tell them?
I think we have to be brave in those circumstances. Jane and myself like costume drama, and we began a few years ago watching Game of Thrones, and very quickly became appalled by the amount of violence that was portrayed, not even as part of the story, but simply to glorify that violence. And we were further appalled by the fact that there were no critics of that program. There were no critics of that violence. It was something that was enjoyed, and indeed a friend of mine said, oh, you should have seen the battle in one episode. It almost made me sick. That is not entertainment. And that glorifies the violence that we are attempting to wipe out through our bringing through of light. But on the factual side, we also have to be careful that we do not absorb too much negativity from our news programs. If we want to make a difference, it's important that we, for example, don't go to bed watching the news. Don't take in that negativity, that sense of, I can't change anything. That sense of it's futile, that sense of I can't make a difference, because then we take that into our sleep state and we magnify it and we build on it, and so it becomes a fact. And we take into our sleep state troubled vibrations. Even some of the programs that purport to investigate paranormal activity, I can't watch, because you will see them going into certain rooms, and they are going there to stimulate spiritual negative activity. I sometimes see people for me, and I sometimes see people who wish to talk to me, and I have to turn these things off. And the television is a great diversion, and you can watch some wonderful things, but you have to make your choices carefully. We have to be careful that we don't glorify and buy into violence, because that violence is then something that we're looking for and something that we contribute into the way that the field operates.
Okay, we have a question here.
Hello, Michael. I'm Larry.
Larry,
I have a question for you. I'm backing up, I can see. I have questions about near-death experiences. I've had 3 of them, and it's fascinating to hear the words you're saying. I really want to know what happens when you cross over. I have vivid memory of going through a tunnel twice and entering this different dimension where I was greeted by masters, one in particular who I have identified. I was sick at the time, and he stayed with me the second time for months at my bedside. Being in that space of complete beauty and love, and then being with angels and archangels and other beings, and then making that crazy decision to come back, and I was given that choice. But when I did come back, they gave me these crazy abilities to see and to heal and to maybe realize my ultimate potentials. Wondering if you can comment on some of that.
That's wonderful. People have a variety of experiences when they pass from here to the next stage of life, dependent on what their perception is, and dependent not on the age of the soul, but on the experience of their soul. And so you have people who, for example, I used to do some rescue work at nights. And for certain people, you would find that you were stood on a shore with them. And some people would be in bandages, and some people would be in hospital gowns and pajamas. And they would get onto what looked for all the world like a beautiful white liner, like something that you would see in the 1930s, a classically lined liner. And they would go up the gangplank, and they would sit on the top deck of that liner, and there would be nothing on the top of that liner except benches. And they would sit in the benches, and the liner silently would move across a sea of light. And it would move towards a distant, what looked like a shore or a beach. And as it approached the shore, people would notice, standing on that shore, relatives and friends. And their bandages would drop away, and their robes at times, their pajamas at times would turn into colorful robes. And by the time they got off that liner, they would be prepared for that life and that homecoming that was awaiting them. So that's one example of what happens, dependent on the nature of the spirit that has gone across. In other examples, there is a sort of fast track that takes place, because the spirit that has moved over, that has passed over, realizes, has access to its soul memories, and knows that it is unnecessary for it to travel through the illusion that I've just described, the illusion of the liner, for example, and very quickly moves to its correct position within the spheres of reality beyond this one, and reconnects to its soul group, to those people who are important as family to it as it moves on through eternity and into infinity. In your case, Larry, it's very evident that it wasn't your time to move on with your soul group, but it was your time on behalf of your soul group and on behalf of God to come back here to make a difference. You decided to do that, and to use those special faculties that you were talking about to show a different way to people. And that's a wonderful and very brave thing for you to have done.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Larry. And I know there's others. Can I see raise your hands if you have a near-death experience, Mr. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have a good dozen here that have had at least one, some multiple, as Larry said, near-death experiences. So I just got goosebumps. I just feel like I'm in the presence of some outstanding angels. It's just
Wonderful.
so we do have one more question here, and then we're gonna, I'm gonna be in a state of gratitude for this time together. What collective intention quickens memory of our angelic sovereignty, recognizing that our, quote, PowerPoint ignites when choosing consciously now?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question. I'm not
That's because it's from Dinama.
That explains it. Yeah. Could you run that by me again, please, now?
I'm going to give it to you again. I think what she's saying is what collective intention quicken memory of our angelic sovereignty.
How do we connect with our angelic inheritance? Is that right? Yeah.
Right. Right. That's good.
We connect with our angelic core through intent, through the way that we live our lives. We connect with our angelic core through constantly connecting with that core consciously through meditation. We connect with that angelic core every time we send out the light. Every time we decide we're not going to be mad at people today. Every time we decide we're not going to judge people today. Every time we decide that we're not looking at situations for their surface value, but we are connecting in light to those situations to change them. Because all those things are angelic acts. All those things go beyond our little personalities. All those things cut right to the core and reconnect us to who we are. And also we can reconnect to our angelic core by asking to serve, by saying, look, I don't know what I'm doing, Father, Mother God. I don't know what I'm doing today, but you do. And if I can be of service, lead me into these situations mentally or physically, or connect me with the people that I need to connect with in order to make a difference. And once I've connected with them, please God, through the heart, give me the correct actions, the correct words, so that I know what to do in order to change things. And increasingly then, we connect with our greater spiritual family. We are of greater use to mankind, and we are of greater use to ourselves because we remember who and what we really are.
Beautiful. I think that's the core of it. So one final comment, question, and I think you just answered this really. How can we make light or good more thrilling than violence? And I think the answer is just by choice, connecting with that angelic core. Do you want to comment on?
We have to lead by example, don't we? We have to switch the light on in ourselves, and we have to be strong enough to show people that there is a different way. Not by forcing them to adopt our way, but by saying, this is the way we live. We're asked, this is the way we live. This is what we believe in. And you can see with some people, the shutters come down and you're not going to get any further. But with other people, they are intrigued. And by example, you can then lead them down their own path of discovery to open up to their angelic inheritance and to the quality of what light can do. Also, we can prove it, of course, through sending light to people who are suffering, to sending light to people who are ill at the moment, and to saying, no, I don't believe the medical prognosis. I don't believe it. I have got light within me. God is powering me with light, and I can send, whether that person, the patient, is aware of it or not, I can send light to them, and I can make a real difference. And then, when they're feeling better, you say, I sent light for you. God sent light for you. And that, again, sends them on a journey of light. There are many ways that we can say living in the light is wonderful. It can prove that living in the light is wonderful. And we can say to people, look at your alternative. Does it really make you happy? At the end of the day, the car, the holiday, the house, Does it make you happy? And even if it does, one day you'll have to leave it behind. Where are you going to? Ours is a bigger picture, and we've got to transmit that, get that across to people.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Our hearts are so full. Thank you so much. And
To all you as well.
we could thank you. I want to show the trailer for the sanctuary there. And so if everyone is wanting to see a 2-minute trailer about the healing center. I believe that Tony runs it, but you all are a part of it. If you want to just say a few words about the healing center, or I can just show the video with your preference, or we can do both.
Just show the video, I think, Noel. He's disappeared.
Okay. Everyone just to stand up and let's just send some light to our co-creators there in Manchester, England.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you also for the gift of the books. We're going to keep in the library, and I'm going to make it available to everyone here and know that how they can connect with you. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you there in England. Or come here next year. We're all about the heart mind next year. So May 31st through for 4 days next year. Maybe five. Invitation is there.
Look forward to connecting with you again next year then.
Thank you very much. Okay, now what I want to do is share screen, and here's this beautiful video that we have. Movies, TV. I have to talk to myself. Here we go. And hit play. No, it's playing. Here we go.
This is Transformer Michael Reccia, warmly welcoming you to the Sanctuary of Healing, a unique complementary therapy centre located deep within the beautiful Ribble Valley, here in the county of Lancashire in the northwest of England. Seeking to heal, inspire, and provide non-denominational spiritual perspectives on life, the Sanctuary is also the home of Joseph, a highly evolved spirit communicator who is deeply worried about the present state of mankind and fears for our future if we continue to tread the path we are currently walking. To date, Joseph has delivered 6 remarkable books through to international acclaim. I'm allowed to say remarkable because I'm only the communicator. The content is entirely Joseph's, and the 7th is in the process of being dictated, with Joseph indicating that an 8th title will follow. Joseph's communications offer illuminating life and planet-changing information in no-nonsense contemporary language, and all proceeds from them are used to facilitate further media releases and to expand awareness of their existence globally. This inspiring place, Sanctuary, being at the very heart of all this activity. To find out more and for regular updates, please visit us at josephcommunications.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and I'm sure that you're going to have some visitors from our group. Anyone interested in visiting the Sanctuary of Healing? And yeah. So thank you and good day. Good night. Thank you. Thank you.
Take care, all. Bye-bye.
Okay, go to Zoom account. Okay, and meeting. Does everyone want to stand up and do a little circulating? Oh, yeah, she wants to get it started.